until we get this one adopted, or June or July 31st, I believe it is, then it becomes invalid. State requires them. It's a component of our general plan. It's actually the element identified as housing. Essentially, what it's designed to do is to project potential housing needs for the County of Imperial over the next several years. The State Department of Housing and Resources, Community Development Services, sets a number, what's called an arena number, for all of Southern California, and then SCAG sets the number for the individual regions. They set the number for the county as well as all the cities. In our case, I believe it's, what, 13,000?
13, yeah.
Something like that is what they're projecting that the unincorporated area of the county could potentially have added to its housing stock between 2008 and 2013. Essentially, it's not telling us we have to go out there and build these things, just that we have to anticipate that that's something that could potentially occur, and therefore we must make sure that there is adequate land use available, explain how water capacities could be achieved in sewer and roads and so forth. All right, that said, do you have any initial concerns with regards to this document? For you?
I have a question. Just curious. And so the past...
Mike?
Yeah, Mike.
The red button?
Oh, I'm sorry. So this is an update of the existing plan, right?
Yes, adopted plan.
Yeah, this is 2008, 2013, the next 5 years.
Next 5, yes.
Next 5 years. So this is 13,000 homes, new homes.
Yes.
So what is the current plan? Oh, how many homes is it included in the existing plan?
7,900.
So is it an addition of 5,000?
They're adding 5,000.
They're adding.
But it's kind of an oddball thing, because the state sets these numbers. They set, like, in 2000, they set the number at 500,000 homes in Southern California would need. And then that trickled down to the County of Imperial at 7,900 for the unincorporated area. We achieved maybe 15% of that goal. And we explained to them that we don't generate the population counts or anything like that, but they still do this, and we have to show that the land is available potentially, like in the case, I think Dave and Derek just recently went through the Salton Sea area looking at vacant R3 zones, and adding up the acreage. It's just essentially saying that if housing were to occur, if development were to be needed, has the jurisdiction planned for that potential for it, or not. Because what they're really concerned about is low income and extremely low income and below market income, that we provide available resources. And it could be anything from vacant land to regulational changes that allow second dwelling units, bonus density where you would allow higher density in a multifamily area if people achieve. So some of it's regulatory, reducing the regulatory constraints for development. And other things are actually available land. Should the developer come in and buy that piece of land in the middle of Heber that happens to be zoned R3 that's vacant, that's available for him, that would be considered something. Does Heber have the water capacity to handle it? If not, what would be its procedures to get water and so forth?
The reason that I'm asking is because the last figures that I look at for, I think it was the planning department, we're talking about 30,000 new homes to be built in Imperial County the next 10 years.
Yeah, the state doesn't look at those types of things. The state looks at what is available. See, if I said that I could go out and take an area in the middle of the desert and do a specific plan out there, the state's not acknowledging that. The state's not saying that. The state's saying, where in your plan today, or in the pipeline that's permitted, that are projects that are submitted currently, is the availability for the growth of the 13,000 that the state has set? If you read Caltrans, Caltrans says we're going to have 50,000. So it's across the board everywhere. But the number that counts is what the state has told us, and the state has told us that it's 13,000. Technically, SCAG has told us, but it's 13,000. So do we have the capacity? But just because someone comes in and says, I want to buy 5,000 acres and do a development, tomorrow doesn't necessarily mean that would be quantifiable or accepted as part of the housing element.
So the conclusion of this plan is, that yes, we have water available and the land is available.
There's potential that the constraints to development have met the limitations of what the state requires. We're not supposed to go out there and build a water plant for some future developer, no.
Yeah.
Just the fact that we have regulations that would allow them to build a water plant within the guidelines of the state. We're not supposed to make it so burdensome. An example, years ago, Santa Barbara basically made it impossible for second dwelling units to be put in. They figured out a way to always make it so that they never were permitted. The state says you can't do that. The state says you have to allow second dwelling units if they meet the density and parking requirements. So,
For lower income.
For lower income. Well, second dwelling units are considered part of the lower income category of acceptable uses. But the point is that's what the state's looking at, is have you restricted your regulations for housing to the point where you have alienated and eliminated the ability for lower income housing to be built in your area? You either made the land so expensive and so cost prohibitive, or you've regulated it to the point where you don't even allow it. And so the state says, here's the numbers we're looking at. From this 13,900, a percentage of it has to be this category of socioeconomics, this category, and this category. Where have you provided those avenues? And some of the stuff talks about economic incentives, the housing authority. How are you going to do this? Well, we'll work with the housing authority to look for grants or USDA farm member housing deals, transitional housing, emergency shelters. Those are the different things. What's the newest one? Not transitional. SB2.
That's
State Assembly Bill 2 is really into. We used to call them emergency shelters, which were they technically are called temporary emergency shelters, but now they want them to be 9-10 month shelters. And so we have to supply areas within our zoning that would allow that. So let's say if all they ever allowed it was in an S1 zone, and that's not practical because there's no S1 zones anywhere near any cities, the state kicks back and says, no, we want it in either residential or commercial, and you have to say, okay, we would allow this as an outright use versus a use with a conditional use permit, because conditional use permits are discretionary in nature, and you can always do like Santa Barbara did and just deny like crazy. Well, they were given the opportunity, but we never found it consistent, so therefore we denied it. And what the state says is you can't do those things. You need to make sure that these services and these things are potentially available should money and or developers come in. That help?
Yes.
Any other questions from the committee? No. I'd like to open this up to the public. Any member of the public wish to come forward and speak on this?
Cliff Hurley, I guess I'm curious, I assume that most housing would take place inside the urban planning areas. Now you've got your specific plan areas, which to me are urban planning areas in most cases. There's the issue of you establishing one of those, but typically the county is not a prime mover for an urban planning area. You have the unincorporated area, but the primary responsibility is with the city to deal with those things, or an unincorporated community like Heber. And obviously the county is a partner with Heber as part of stuff, but to me the way you put it, it sounds like the county has a big burden, and to me the burden really isn't as much on the county as it is on the cities, because to me urban development is housing, and I don't look at the county to be the urban planner for the county. I look for people other than the county to take care of those things. I think it would be inappropriate for the county to assume that they are the urban planner. And so I guess I'm curious, I don't agree with state law a lot of times, and I guess that's what you're dealing with. But, I have that distinction. And to me, you guys are being all things to all people, and I'm curious why it has to be that way. Thank you.
Well, hold on, Cliff. I can answer your question.